Sandhu Saab, extremely grateful to have you join me from Washington live. The Prime Minister is all set for a historic visit to the United States, and it's a state visit, and for the second time, very few leaders and heads of states have addressed a joint session of the US Congress. How important do you think this visit and this specific address to the Congress is going to be?
So, Navika, thank you for having me. Indeed, it's a historic and a comprehensive visit. There are both ceremonial and substantive aspects which are equally important. The Prime Minister will be the third Indian leader since independence who will be accorded a state visit. And as you have also indicated, he would be the first Indian leader to address the US Congress twice. He has already done it in 2016, and by doing it the second time, he will join the rare company of Nelson Mandela, Churchill, and Israeli leaders. And this essentially reflects the bipartisan support that India has in the US Congress. And also, there is an interest in the India story at the Hill. And people want to hear Prime Minister's views on different topics. And we will also see a number of significant deliverables in which high-tech will be the focus area. So it's indeed going to be a defining moment.
Extremely defining moment. Do you think Indo-US ties have deepened in the last 9 years? How would you look back? I'm not talking about the Quad level. I'm talking about really the bilateral ties between India and the United States.
So, Navika, that is very true. The bilateral relationship has transformed completely in the last few years. And there are 4 themes of transformation which you can very clearly see. Firstly, it is people and development driven. Secondly, the focus is the public and global good. Third, trust and confidence is an important benchmark. And out of that also flows strategic convergence and exchanges. You know, what is being discussed today was not even imaginable 10 years ago. And as Prime Minister Modi himself said in his last address to the US Congress in 2016, that the hesitations of history have been overcome. And these are essentially reflected in the outcomes. You know, bilaterally, today the progress has been made across the spectrum. And in that, if I may just take 2 minutes, there are 5 clear areas in which there is substantial progress, which you can see in the last period which you are mentioning. Healthcare, and because of COVID, there's been so much of focus on healthcare. Today, Indian companies play a substantial role in providing generic drugs to the United States. In fact, to the tune of almost 50%. So today, if you go to a US pharmacy, many of the essential drugs, like fever-reducing medicines, you will be surprised if you look behind, it will be written made in India. Similarly, in the vaccine side, there are a number of vaccines, including some things like rotavirus and vaccines relating to COVID. The bulk price of those have come down sharply with United States and India working together. Similarly, in the areas of technology, in the area of clean energy, in education, knowledge partnership, and particularly skilling, again, there is huge scope. And finally, in defense and the strategic side, technology is cross-cutting. And therefore, that essentially again shows the trust and confidence between our two sides.
So let me ask you, Ambassador, the question is that every time there is a state visit, it's different from a visit that you make to, let's say, a UNGA or visits of that kind. Can you just describe for our viewers how is a state visit very different from other normal visits that you have, multilateral visits that take place?
Absolutely. There is a distinction between state visits and others. Actually, a state visit in the United States is usually considered the highest expression of friendly bilateral relationship. And that includes several elements. There is a ceremonial welcome. There is a special arrival ceremony at the White House, which will have all the honor elements. We expect a large number of diaspora to witness this honor being given to India and its Prime Minister. There will be a state dinner which will be hosted by President Biden and the First Lady, in which the cream of United States will be present. And then, of course, there is a lunch, a state lunch, which is hosted by the Vice President and Secretary Blinken. So definitely the messaging is loud and clear that India and United States want to elevate the partnership to the next level. And this closer partnership between our two countries is not only for mutual benefit, that is United States and India, but it's also for global good.
Ambassador Sandhu, you said high-tech is an important area. Between high-tech and defense deals, can you give us a little bit of a teaser on what could be coming up?
So let me mention here that when this relationship evolved, at that time, it was more of a buyer-seller relationship, more of a market-oriented. Today, the vision is much more. It is development and welfare of people. Today, actually, we are looking at innovating, creating, and developing together. India is being seen as a reliable partner in global supply chains. Now, I can give you immediate examples. You are looking at Apple making iPhones in India. On the other side, the Indian companies are creating jobs and enhancing skills in the United States. You have companies like HCL, Infosys, TCS, Wipro, etc. So high-tech has indeed become one of the key areas, and technology is the single most important driver. As I mentioned to you, that technology has a much wider reference. It is not only strategic, but also commercial. And actually at the bottom of it, the technology partnership can only evolve when you have trust and confidence on both sides. You just had the United States NSA in India. Our NSA was here earlier in end of January. And I think from the statements of both our NSAs, it's quite visible that there is much trust and confidence between the both sides. And we are today working together in the field of critical and emerging technologies, bilaterally as well as in Quad. And therefore, overall scientific R&D, quantum, AI, defense innovation, space, advanced telecommunications that include 5G, 6G, and semiconductors. So first time under the ISET, what we talk of industry, academia, and the government are coming together. And I think this would have a great repercussions both for United States, India, as well as the world.
What do you think about fighter jet engines, ship engines? Are we close to any deals on some of these areas that have been pursued by India in the past?
So, Navika, I can certainly say that I'm not going to get into the details of the deliverables, but do look at the important engagements and meaningful deliverables. As I have mentioned to you, that critical and emerging technologies will certainly be touching the defense. So therefore, it's not just that we are not going to be touching many of those elements. We just saw Secretary of Defense of the United States, Austin. He visited India, and he actually has come out with what is called Defense Industrial Collaboration Plan. So there's a roadmap in this direction, which was concluded during his visit. And therefore, all of these would be part, but specifically, I will desist in commenting. Perhaps after the visit, we will get an opportunity to talk about this. However, as I said, that tech is going to be the driving key, and tech stretches across different areas. Definitely, defense is one of the important aspects. As you know, United States is a technology powerhouse, and India is a technology emerging powerhouse. So therefore, it is natural for both these two countries to be collaborating, working, and co-producing.
You're obviously keeping your cards very close to your chest, Ambassador Sandhu. But let me ask you on the trade deal. It somewhere got derailed during the previous Trump regime, and they said India was playing hard to get. Are we anywhere close to the trade deal? Any conversation on that expected?
So, Navika, let's, with open eyes, look at the facts. You know, the expansion in trade and commerce relationship has happened despite there being no trade deal between our two countries. You know, the bilateral trade, despite the pandemic, despite no trade deal, today stands at 119 billion plus. It's a record. And keep in mind, we have had 2 rounds of ministerial trade policy forum meetings and important outcomes which have included some of the decade-old market access issues that have been sorted out. Similarly, we have had commercial dialogue, CEO forum. The foreign secretary was here, and the strategic trade dialogue took off, in which important export control issues that facilitate high technology partnership were taking up. So therefore, United States and India is partnering in number of ways, including in Indo-Pacific Economic Forum. So the robust economic relationship is deepening and will continue to deepen further. And I have to only point out to some of the statements being made by the Commerce Secretary here, the Commerce Minister, Gina Raimondo, and also the trade negotiator. So I can assure you that the trade relationship is deepening.
Well, let me ask you, as far as Quad specifics are concerned, are some of those issues on the agenda as well for discussion?
Look, you just saw that Quad meeting took place in Hiroshima. It was all visible. I think the Quad has developed a big deal. All the 4 countries are committed to supporting a free and open Indo-Pacific, which is inclusive and resilient. In the last 2 years, 5 Quad summits have taken place. And the next Quad summit is being hosted by India in 2024. And I would again point out, very recently, I hosted a Quad ambassadors meeting with our US partners, which included the bipartisan chair and ranking member of the US Congress Foreign Affairs Committee. The commitment and the resolve is very clear. And there have been practical cooperation and tangible outcomes. Let me just mention a few. You know, the Quad STEM Fellowship, that is already in operation. And amongst the first cohort who are joining this summer includes one of the girls who had come here. She has actually been brought up in a slum. Look at the excitement. She is today a Quad fellow in the United States. That's the kind of touch Quad initiatives, and this bilateral relationship has the people orientation. And therefore, we are looking at now Quad Infrastructure Fellowship, which will have thousands of scholarships being provided. Other initiatives include on investment, cyber security, hydrogen, health security, telecom, etc. So Quad has truly become what the Prime Minister has described as a force of global good.
Ambassador Sandhu, for very long we've waited for India to have the stature to be on the high table. UN reforms and India's seat at the Security Council, can we elbow out countries like China, push them a little aside, address some of our concerns? Does something like that seem possible to you? And I'm talking to you purely in a lay Indian citizen's mind. They always feel if we've achieved the stature that we have today, can we actually make some of those changes, be on the high table, and what can we do about China? Any of those issues likely to come up?
So on the expansion of the UNSC, India's position has been very clear, and I don't need to go into details on that. However, I think on the high table, we are very much present. On substantial issues, G20, we are holding the leadership right now. Important decision makings, we are participating. But I also want to mention specifically on the UN Security Council reform, which you have stated. President Biden himself has on several occasions, including when he was a senator, expressed categorical support for India's membership in the expanded UN Security Council. And both the countries continue to be in close consultations. If you have seen some of the outcome documents that have actually mentioned that. But at the same time, the UN and other international organization partnerships between United States and India have intensified. And United States recognizes, in fact, Secretary of State Blinken has spoken about it many times, that India's role in the UN is very important. A number of new consultation processes between their State Department and our MEA are there, and they are now intensifying. And in fact, United States and India have also had counterterrorism cooperation, including at the UN. So therefore, it is definitely one of the important agendas there.
Well, we do hope we see some positive movement on that. But Ambassador Sandhu, let me ask you, there's a private dinner that is being hosted for the Prime Minister. There is another official dinner. There is a lunch. I just want to ask you, you've been on many of these meetings, many of these occasions. What do you think about the personal camaraderie that is shared between Prime Minister Modi and President Biden?
So, Navika, I'm not going to get into the specific elements. You seem to know it even better than me. So maybe after this interview,
you are our only fly on the wall. You are our only fly on the wall who will give us the real picture. So please give us whatever details you can.
Let me answer the real crux of your question. Prime Minister Modi and President Biden's friendship goes back to 2014, when the president was the vice president and he hosted Prime Minister Modi for a lunch. Then he also participated in 2016. He presided over the joint session of the US Congress. Now, in last 2.5 years, you have seen the president and the prime minister, a number of interactions have taken place in person and in virtual. Even the last one in Hiroshima, it was very much for all to see their camaraderie, as you say. Both the leaders are deeply committed in this partnership, and prosperity and development of the people is the center of it. In fact, as far as President Biden is concerned, the Secretary of State just few days ago commented about President Biden's commitment to the friendship with India, and he is very much in position to do so because in the late 90s, he was the staffer of the then Senator Biden. And that commitment goes back there. Now, there is a lot of element that you will see in this visit. I can certainly tell you the amount of time they will spend together will certainly be a landmark, will be much more than you have seen Prime Minister and President of the United States spending in the past. I will leave it at that.
Well. Seems like a big visit coming up, and you're going to have your hands full, Ambassador Sandhu. So all the very best, and thank you so very much for joining us here.